Hello, if you've managed to click on this video, this is my third video in my 2014 first mock draft of the year. If you guys want to watch my first two episodes, which highlights pick through 10, click these links above. If I center myself out, they'll be above my fingers right here. Click these links and you will be up to date on who's been taken so far and who has not. Anyways, we're going to get started here. We're going to jump right into it, 30 seconds in. And we're going to start with pick number 11 with Tennessee. And this is where I have a problem with my mock draft because I have wide receiver Sammy Watkins out of Clemson going to Tennessee. This is down 6 from my original mock draft that I did before this. I had him going to Oakland. But now, with this new one, with all the information that I had, I just could not find a spot for Sammy Watkins because I'm trying to think logically here for each team. And I just, Detroit says they want to take Sammy Watkins. They're really falling in love with him. And so if he falls to 10, he's going to get taken by Detroit. I don't think Sammy Watkins is going to fall outside of the top 10. But this is my mock draft. I get to do what I want. But Sammy Watkins at 11 actually makes some sense for Tennessee because they, out of sight of Kendall Wright, don't really have anyone. Like Nate Washington is old and Kendall Hunter is still learning in the system. My ear itches. Anyway, Sammy Watkins to Tennessee. He's going to be a playmaker basically anywhere he goes, and Tennessee is no different. That'll boost up their wide receiver core. I mean, you could also say that they need a quarterback, but you know, let's see what Jake Locker can do for a little bit more. Now we're going to go off to the New York Giants pick at number 12, and I have them going with cornerback Darqueze Dennard. I had originally Dennard going to Detroit at number 10, but Justin Gilbert had a phenomenal combine, so I moved him up as my top cornerback. Anyways, back to Darqueze Dennard. I can't remember why I had him. I had him in the first round, but he was a little bit down because I had New York picking C.J. Mosley. But I switched that around because New York really needs some secondary problems. I can't really name anyone in their secondary. Minus, I think there's a Webster and Prince Amukamara. So I think with Darqueze Dennard is a very physical corner, even though he's only 5'11", plays a lot larger than actually is. And he won the Jim Thorpe Award, so he's definitely proven himself into college. He played all 4 years. I think he's going to be a nice physical corner for New York, and that is going to bolster that aging defense. Not really aging defense, but just a defense that is not very good. Now we're going to move to pick number 13, and this is St. Louis's second pick in the first round. This is their number 2 pick is from Washington, and I have them going with Mike Evans, and that's why I had them going with Jake Matthews at number 2, is because I feel like Mike Evans will be available at number 3, and I feel like he'll be as good as Sammy Watkins, but in different ways. Because Sammy Watkins is only 6'1", Mike Evans is 6'5" and 230. So he's one of those wide receivers that goes up and attacks the ball at the highest point. You give him a jump ball in the end zone, more than likely he's going to come down with it. I have a little stat from him versus Auburn. He had 11 receptions for 287 yards and 4 touchdowns against Auburn, who just almost won a national title against Florida State. He was first team All-SEC, and he was 2013 AP All-American team first team as a redshirt sophomore. So you got this young guy getting all these accolades early, and he might have been a beneficiary of Johnny Manziel, but still, he definitely produced in every game that he played. Him foregoing his last 2 years kind of scares me because you can learn so much in those 2 years, and he'd be like a real top prospect going into if he finished his last 2 years. But still, he's a top prospect in this draft as a redshirt sophomore, and I feel like give him a couple of years, but Mike Evans might be finally that number 1 receiver that St. Louis has been looking for all along. They have Tavon Austin too in the slot. So if that's a case where they pick Jake Matthews and Mike Evans in this draft, the Rams are going to get a lot better just with those 2 picks too. And you just have to see what would happen in the later rounds too. But St. Louis is definitely on the up and up. Now we are going to go with pick number 14, and this is the Chicago Bears are picking at number 14. I have them picking Coney Ealy, defensive end out of Missouri. basically he's going to be replacing Julius Peppers, who's at the twilight of his career. And that Chicago defense, after being so scary in 2012, just fell off the face of the earth, was not a good defense at all. And I think Coney Ealy is a guy that can get to the quarterback and it'll relieve some pressure off of the secondary. I don't know much about Coney Ealy. When I did a little bit of research before this, he's 6'4", 273, so you'd want him to be a couple inches taller, but as long as he's speedy and can get around offensive linemen, I think he should be fine. And that's another thing I want to say. The further I get through my draft in my first round, the less and less I know about the players at the end of the draft compared to the top players, because we've been talking about Johnny Manziel for the past 2 years. I first heard of Coney Ealy once during this season, and basically why I have him going to Chicago at number 14 is because a lot of people are saying he's the second best defensive end prospect behind Jadeveon Clowney. But quite honestly, with D Ford out of Auburn, I wouldn't be too surprised if he went that high. It all just kind of depends on what coaches and GMs see in certain players. But I don't even have D Ford in my top first round. But yeah, Coney Ealy, I think he'll be a good replacement to Julius Peppers. And pick number 15 are the Pittsburgh Steelers. Needed to strengthen up that offensive line. It's getting so old, so I have them picking offensive tackle Zach Martin out of Notre Dame. And here's a couple stats. He's 6'4", 308 pounds. Again, you might want like 1 or 2 more inches on him, but he still has got the size, the 308 pounds. He set a school record for career starts by an offensive lineman at Notre Dame with 52 starts. Notre Dame's offensive line only allowed 8 sacks last season, second best in the FBS, and he was the MVP of the 2013 Pinstripe Bowl versus Rutgers. I didn't even know they gave MVPs out for offensive linemen, but he must have done a hell of a job. But he was the next best, basically, offensive tackle after Greg Robinson and Jake Matthews got picked. I think he was the next. No, Taylor Lewan, so he's after him. But still, they need to go offensive line in this situation just because it wasn't that good last year from what I saw. Defense is getting old. They also need to address that. And I think that's where Pittsburgh should go in their direction. So this one's a little bit shorter today. They might get shorter from here because I just don't know, and I don't know the certain players that are getting picked as well. I never claimed to be an expert. But again, if you manage to click on this video and watch a guy you never met before talk about football, very poorly, I might add today, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. If you have any comments or concerns or criticisms, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'll see it. We can talk about whatever. If you just want to talk about football, I'll make sure you give me your 2 cents. I'll give you my 2 cents, and it'll just be a good time. I love talking about football. Anyways, that should do it for today. Thank you again for watching, and I shall see you tomorrow.